Okay, thank you. Uh, so just a very quick flashback. Principles of economics we're going to discuss. So first, we said the major questions would be there for you: who is going to work, uh, how much products are supposed to be produced, and what resources should be used and what price, and then uh, the scarcity of the matter. So basically, society doesn't have limitless uh, resources. I think I think it's pretty much the same, Mr. Zubair. Scarcity means that uh, we have limited resources to use. Uh, so um, what it is it's not unlimited. Nothing is unlimited here. I mean, some people will presume water is unlimited or a lot of things. Air is unlimited, but everything is limited in the world of economics. So you can't just say that this is unlimited. I mean, this is unlimited and it's mm, so the concept actually exists in economics. The ideas of economics only make sense with the concept of scarcity. Without a scarcity, it doesn't make sense to set prices and expect people to pay for stuff if it's like unlimited and everybody can get it. Basically, economics is based on the fact that there is a scarcity in the society and in the world around us, and we have only a limited uh, number of resources. So that's how economics works. So these are like the rules, the basic rules that we need to know. Like these 10 principles that we are going to discuss today are those that are going to be with us forever for economics. Those are our foundational uh, basic rules that we will always have in mind. Okay, and in a sense, yes, Mr. Nawabi says if there is no scarcity, there is no economy. I mean, economy, as long as there is money and business going on in the life, so it's basically economy is very much related to that. But the way that we theorize it, the way we understand it, is there is a major link between scarcity and economics. So, like here, a definition of economics in the eyes of or in the light of scarcity is that the study of how society manages in its scarce resources is called economics. So as you can see here, um, how does a society manage its resources? So it's either by money or barter trade that we'll discuss, and uh, so the way that uh, society manages those scarcity is called economics. So in a sense, without no scarcity, no economics makes sense. So now we come to the major question: how people make decisions. People face trade-offs. The cost of something is what you give up to get it, and rational people think at the margin and respond to incentives. Okay, so here we are going to discuss another concept, and it's called trade-offs. So people when we are making decisions, we are supposed to make trade-offs. So if, let's say, you want to get something, you got to give up something else. Like this, going back to the money example, if you have $1,000, for every single dollar that you spend, you could trade it off with something else, or probably few hundreds of those uh, dollars that you got can get you something that you can buy, and after you used up that $1,000, your money is gone. So let's say you decide to spend $100 in buying a book from a bookshop that you just saw, and that book looks so appealing to you. You're so much in love with that book, and you think you need that book, and you pay for it and you buy it. So you lose $100 from that 1,000 that you had. So now you have a book which is worth $100. But the fact is, that $100 that you spent uh, for that book, you could have spent it for, let's say, lunch. You could have had lunch with a friend. Let's say if there was a $10 lunch, 10 times. So instead of doing that, you gave it up, and so instead of that $100 that you spent on the book, you could have decided to have lunch. So you gave up something and you got something else. And this is basically the concept that we are dealing with in economics every single decision that we make. So every single great decision that you make will not take away this fact. I mean, this fact holds for every single decision that we make. Even though you might make the best decision ever, the most efficient and beautiful decision possible, but you would still feel that there were stuff that you could do and you didn't do that because of your scarcity and lack of resources, or not. Uh, I mean, you have a limited number of resources, so you use it and you did something. So that's called something that we will discuss in the next slide. Uh, then people interact with each other. Trade can make everyone better off. This is also another concept in economics. Uh, the concept is, if you are doing trade, if you are trading something, both parties need to better off. It's not that, okay, I get something, like as a seller, I sell it to you for $10, and as a buyer, you won't get anything. That doesn't work. It's like better off for both of the parties. One of them just, let's say, sells the product, produces it, and then sets a price and get it ready to the shop, so sells it and gets money. The other side is paying the money to use that product. So that concept also applies to everything in economics. You can't just have stuff that is only beneficial to one side. Now, you might think of charities and stuff that are like that that are going on, but in a sense, charities are also bettering off by helping the society to 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 be better. So in an economic perspective, everyone should better off. And markets are usually a good way to recognize economic activities. And then governments can sometimes improve economic outcomes. Okay, that's a good question. I have this question from Mr. Barak. How can they improve economic outcomes? The first answer, which is right in front of you, is to make better decisions. Better economic decisions, better trade-offs will give the governments more money or more resources, even though they are limited, but there are more resources to use for other aspects of their countries. So uh, they can improve their economic outcomes by making better economic decisions, and quality control and policy making and all that are more of a detail oriented answer and don't necessarily fit into a business economics course. But yes, for sure, they can do that. Okay, let's go to the next slide. The forces and trends that affect how the economy as a whole works. So there are forces and trends that uh, they will affect or have influence on the economy as a whole. Some of them is the standard of living. It depends on the country's production. One concept that we will discuss in our our class this semester is GDP growth, domestic product, and growth, national product, and all those kind of information. But all of that, basically what it refers to is the standard of living of the people in that country. So uh, basically, the standard of living of a country depends very much on uh, how much they produce, the country as a whole, how much they produce. If they're just a consumer, if they're just using others people products, they will be in trouble. But those governments that are very much caring about, uh, production are those that will be successful and who are already successful. Then the next concept is when there, we talked about a scarcity. Where and why not much things so much money? Okay, that's a very good question, Mark. You're one step ahead of me. Uh, this second concept that we say over in case of increasing the money uh, by printing more, you'll raise the prices. So the question is why for Mr. Warren? The answer would be going back to scarcity. I mean, I'll be referring to that concept a lot, and you'll be using that, and that helps you. I mean, the beautiful thing about economics is very, very common sense, basic rules that apply help us to explain very, very difficult situations and difficult scenarios. All you need to do is like take these principles to your heart, be able to analyze them, and whichever problem or case you're given, be able to analyze it through the eyes of all those hints. So your answer actually is already in your question by, or probably in the slide, by looking at scarcity. We just discussed how limited we are regarding the resources that we can use. So the money that we have is limited. Yes, we can always print some money, but it is linked to a certain value. So if we print more money, the value of that money will fall. And when the value falls, it will cause an increase in the prices. So it's very simple. So I missed a question here. Let me see what you asked. Setting high taxes rates for import of goods. which is a good return for government. Okay, the second question from Mr. Zubair is, what if governments put higher taxes on goods that we import? That could cost some more money. You're promoting national companies. Okay. The second question from Mr. Zubair is, okay, so if that is the case, let's just increase the taxes and governments will make more money. But to answer your question, it is not necessarily true, because if you raise taxes, in a sense, you're increasing the price to the producer of that product. Let's say I am a person who creates mineral waters like the bottles, and it will cost me $1 to create that, so I'll charge customers $2, okay? But if a government increases tax on me, instead of $1, let's say it might be $1.50 or $1.20 or something. That increase will hurt me so much that I will not be necessarily in balance, because, or meet the break-even point, means that I could cover the expenses that I have and profit. So I will be really considered what to do, because it's not easy. Then, getting back to Mr. Barak, yes, printing too much money will cause inflation because it devalues the value of the money. Then, going back to Mr. Zubair, like in Afghanistan government is not supporting national companies. Okay. The backup regarding printing money, backup is the value. Let's say $1 has a certain value, and if you have, let's say, 1,000,000, or let me explain it to you this way. Let's consider money just as the receipt of a certain value. Okay, so if you have one receipt, it supports one value. So if you have two receipts instead of one, it basically will double the receipts and your values are still the same. So each receipt will have half value as much, right? So that's the way it works. We are getting like away from the major topic of the class. Now we are getting to gold standard. We will cover all these. The only major concept that I want you to consider and focus on is that if they print too much money, it will cause increase in inflation, and it's because of a scarcity. We just discussed that. They have a limited number of scarcity, and basically when you use more of those resources, then you'll have problems. So I see Mr. Wafa's hand there. Do you have any question, Mr. Wafa? Please go ahead and speak up. Okay. Maybe you don't have that question anymore. You can always speak up if you want. So Mr. Zubair is asking why dollar is the most printed money in the world and is still high in value. It's because of the same fact, because of the scarcity, the resources, the production. Dollar is the highest because the production that uh, America does covers the dollar. Like there is there is a continuous production happening, and that's why it will support the value.
Hello.
Hello, yes, I can hear you.
Sorry, Mr. Puyan, I should have lowered my hand because I read it earlier in the
Mhm.
slide where it said that the governments can sometimes improve economics. In
Mhm.
the subsequent slide, my question was somehow answered. However, I am still somehow confused. Is really the role of the government that much weightless and light related to economics? Because I believe governments always have and play a strong role in making the economics in a country.
Mm, can you say your question again? Your question is whether governments have any role in helping the economics of the country.
In yeah, in the slide which was displayed, it was that it said that the government sometimes can improve economics, but I think and I believe governments always, not sometimes, have strong rules in making the economics well off.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yes. By this slide, we mean basically government is not always able to improve economic outcomes because government will try and thrive to make betterment in economics, but economic situation and economic outcome are not necessarily the way governments expect them to perform, and sometimes they fail to improve the economic outcomes. So government might put taxes or inflation and everything to help the economic situation better, but it's not guaranteed that they can work. So what governments want to do and what governments really do, there is a major difference right there. So you can't just say, okay, governments really want to better the economic system, and if they want to, they can. That's not true. That's not true, and that's why a lot of major companies, I mean not companies, countries, are struggling with their economic system. Governments are really trying hard to fix those problems, but they're not able to. So basically, this slide is saying that they can sometimes improve it, not always. So this doesn't mean that they don't want to. They are trying it continuously because economic system of a country basically is in a direct relationship with the fact that how that country is doing. So if a country is not doing well in economics, for sure they are in trouble, like what is happening in Greece or Spain or some eurozone countries. They are in trouble because they can't make improvements. Even United States have these problems. The economic system is not necessarily working. They plan it ahead, so they can't always make improvements, but they try. So we covered that, and we covered how increases in prices uh, will be the effect of printing too much money. Then society faces a short-run trade-off between inflation and unemployment. So these are just some facts that they are throwing at you, and I will explain them like in future, like with more details. But just these are certain principles. If you have uh, uh, if you have high inflation, I mean, you either can fix inflation or unemployment. Let's put it this way. If a government decides for this year to really take care of the inflation, they will have a lot of unemployment, and vice versa. If they want to fix their unemployment, their inflation will go high. But the reason being that inflation is the cause of not non-performing or well-performing economy. When you have inflation, it means too little, uh, too little, or too much money, sorry, chasing too little resources. So instead of, let's say, when you had $100 and it was good for, let's say, certain number of products, now that $100 is not enough. So you need, let's say, 110. That's called inflation. So if a government decides to fix that, they need to spend money on inflation, and that will cause unemployment because they have to make fixes on the economy, and a lot of subsidies and a lot of jobs that will be created would be the money would be put into the projects of decreasing the inflation. If all the governments are trying to improve the economic system, other countries are declining, it means something is wrong with the economic system. Okay, Mr. Sabar. It is nothing wrong with the economy system. Basically, as we tried to discuss in the previous session, economy, there is no right or wrong. Like this, the video clip that I shared, it was very nice, and explaining what goes on in economy. She was saying that she gets that all the time when she says she's an economist. They say, okay, why economy is not getting better? There is no better or worse for economy in that sense. Economy is basically what is happening, like the production, consumption, the relationship between these two, the producer, consumer, and the relationship between these two is called economy. So the way it is right now is the way that the economy is. And the way we interpret it as bad or good is not necessarily true. We have behaviors. Let's say we are like we as consumers, we have certain type of products that we like. So we start buying them, and we buying them sort of gives the impression to the producers, okay, these are good products. They go start making businesses. They go start making companies to make more of those products that we are buying more. And then suddenly the need that we have, or the desire or passion we have for those products, sort of slows down. And those companies will suffer. And they will suffer, and they have to close down, and they go bankrupt or whatever. This doesn't mean that the economy is bad. This means that there is a change in the behavior of the customer. So customer, instead of buying, let's say, they used to buy traditional books, okay, printed books. So they stopped doing that. They started buying online books. So it doesn't, and then a lot of publishers will suffer for sure. They have to go bankrupt. And this doesn't mean that the economy is bad. It's just a change in the behavior. So now that customer who was chasing or looking for those type of books, now he's looking for another product. So it's like just a change. So it really helps to understand what's going on with the economic life cycle, how products have a life cycle, how we have a demand and supply. We will discuss that all in details. But as of now, in order to be able to move on, we just want to know, and we want to focus that governments try to make the economic system better in the sense that their production will be better, so that their value for the money would be higher. They try that, but they fail a lot of times because they have a lot in their plate, and also they're not able to understand what's going on always. I have a question here. If an apple is dropped from a tree, it certainly falls and can be predicted. But economy, since it is an art and science, can not be predicted 100%. Okay, I'm telling you about an apple. That apple also, if the gravity sort of changes, if the earth will move in a certain way, that if that gravity changes, that apple will not fall for certain also. Unless you understand what exactly is going on, you won't be able to predict, okay? So economy is basically the relationship between the the consumption and production, consumer and producer, and how we sort of work it through to make it the way we want is not necessarily economics. It's you understand the economics and then you can use it in any way you like. That is not called economics. But economics is basically a simple understanding of how things work, how we have demand and how we have supply, and how certain rules apply when you are producing or consuming. But if you are not able to interpret that right, and you get a uh, wrong answer, or you get a wrong reaction from your customers or producers, doesn't mean that the economics is not working. It means our understanding of economics is not working. Am I making sense? Are you following me? So it's wrong that it's like a common mistake that people think economy works and doesn't work sometimes. It's not true. Our understanding of economics will change, and our interpretation of economics will change. But economics as of its own, it works. It's like just a relationship that is going on between production and consumption and how we relate that together. It's very important to understand that because this is like the major presumption that I want to make, that you all are on the same page and you know what I'm talking about, because we are not going to be common people talking about economics. We are going to be discussing economics like scientifically. So we can't just say, okay, economics is working or not working. We need to understand what is economics and what is not working. So what is not working is basically our interpretation or understanding of economics. But economics as its own is a quite clear concept. There are theories there and a lot of things, but basically it's very, very clear. Any questions you have for me right now? I mean, I really want to make sure that everybody's following what I'm saying. Okay. Okay. Seems that there's no question. You can always write it down or raise your hand and speak it up. Okay. So we discussed these. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. So going back to the trade-off, there is nothing there as of a free lunch. That is, I mean, once in a while we get a free lunch. A friend will treat us lunch, but as of economics, there's nothing like a free lunch. There's always a relationship between what you get as a resource, like a product, and what you give out. There is always something there. It's like an equation. We can't just say 1 plus nothing will be 2. 1 always plus something will be 2. So that is a very, very basic understanding that we will be discussing. So to get one thing, we usually have to give up another thing. We just discussed that. We have a scarcity, and scarcity means we have limited resources. And limited resources means when we get something, we are losing something. So it's like an equation. So guns versus butter, food versus clothing, leisure time versus work, efficiency versus equity. Making decisions requires trading off one goal against another. This is a very important concept that I want you to understand, and it will follow us. So these principles that we will be discussing, I want you really to try to learn them by heart, and I want them to be very accessible to you, because later on as we move on, things might get a bit more complicated, and knowing these principles by heart helps you to be able to analyze what exactly is going on. So even though they look pretty simple and common sense, but it's not the way it looks in future unless you really take some time and understand what exactly we mean. It's like I want you to get the totality of it. Okay, so to give you a bit more of a complex situation is, let's say you are getting a free lunch. Okay, so it's safe to say that it's nothing uh, that is cost to you. You're just getting a free lunch. That's great. You're not paying any money for your lunch, uh, and so that will challenge this idea, right? But it's not true. Getting that free lunch and eating that free lunch is costing you, and it's basically you are losing out on something else. And what is that? Instead of that free lunch, you could have made your lunch. Uh, you could have get some other free lunch from somebody else that could be better. Let's say you're getting a hamburger. Somebody could have given you a free, let's say, pizza, or even like a fancier food, like a steak, or take you to a very fancy restaurant. So in a sense, even though you're not paying anything, because you're paying time and you're eating that food, and it's like what you will take, and then you will be full afterwards, you are losing the opportunity of having other type of, let's say, lunch instead of that type of free lunch that you're getting. So in a sense, you're losing something else. You're trading off. You're making the decision to take that food, and by taking that food, you're making the decision of not taking anything else. So all other possibilities out there, you're saying no to them and taking this offer, you know? Or let's say you get a job offer, okay? That is great, that's awesome. But when you get that job, that means you're saying no to all other jobs that you could have got. Am I making sense? Are you following me? So basically that free lunch is not free anymore. Are you following where I'm taking you? Is I'm just taking away the concept of a free lunch from your mind, which might hurt a bit in the beginning, but it helps you understand how economics works. So you are paying not necessarily money, but by your decisions, you're trading off. You're saying no to something to say yes to something. So even though you say yes to something, you're saying no to a lot of other possibilities out there. Okay, any questions for me? Ms. Masuda? Okay. Is it clear for you? You asked me to explain it again. Are you clear now? Okay, good. So let's move on. But just try to follow wherever you're lost or you need more explanation. Please let me know, so that we can spend more time. So efficiency versus equity. Efficiency means society gets the most that it can from its scarce resources. Equity means that the benefits of those resources are distributed fairly among the members of the society. Okay, so these are two just terms that we learn. Efficiency, efficiency and equity, they have their own meaning, but in economic terms, they have their different meaning. So we might use certain words like scarcity so far is very, very important. So scarcity in like a normal world, it might mean a bit different from what it means in economics. So again, in economics, efficiency means that society gets the most that it can from its scarce resources. That's called efficiency. And equity means that it should be distributed fairly among the members of the society. Okay, so these are just definitions of these two terms in economics. So decisions that we make require that we compare the cost and benefit of alternatives. Let's say where to go to college or to work. I was just talking about that. Or whether to study or go out on a date, or whether to go to class or sleep in. And now I'm going to give you the term for what I just explained it to you. Okay, get benefits from society. I guess that's for like asking me a question. Means the benefits. Equity is the benefits, the benefits that we gain from those resources. Oh, your question is about efficiency. Efficiency, as I said, means that or it is when you get the most possible from your scarce resources. What does it mean? Let's say you have a lake, okay? You have a lake, and that's your resource of water, okay? So efficiency means you get as much as bottles of water as possible from that lake if you're looking for water. Or let's say you have trees, like you have 100 trees, and you're looking for papers. So efficiency means you get as much as possible papers from those trees as possible. You don't waste anything, okay? So when you got that papers or those bottles of water, equity is distributing those bottles of water or those papers that you created fairly among your people, your society. It doesn't have to do anything with justice. You're looking at it with the eyes of economics, So forget about like justice and fairness and everything. This fair doesn't mean that the fair in like justice. It's about like money wise and how you will count it. Continental. Okay. I got a good example from Mr. Zargun, that's right. And I got a question from Mr. Navabi. How does a capitalist country ensure quality while there is ensure equity? Okay. Yeah, as I said, that equity is not doesn't have anything to do with capitalism or socialism or anything else. That means that means that means how you count. It's like basically has nothing to do with capitalism. It's let's say you have 10 bottles, okay? So by equity, what we mean is our bottles should be measurable so that we have the same amount of water in each bottle so that when we distribute, each bottle has the same amount in it. So it doesn't mean that if I am rich and I get all the 10 bottles, or if somebody is poor and he gets none, that's not the case. That's not the issue. We are talking about being able to divide that amount of bottle of water that we have into 10 similar same amount of bottles of water. That's all we are talking about. We don't want to go into fairness and everything like in that regard. So as I said, the terms that we are going to use, they might look exactly like what common people use or it's like using every day, but we are using it in economic terms. So that's very important. When I say equity in economics, when I say efficiency, I don't mean the regular meaning for efficiency. I'm using it as an economic terms, and that is very important to know in our class. And so we will please take that in mind. Then the next concept that I just talked about, that I said there's nothing like a free lunch and blah blah. And when the cost of something is what you give up to get, it's called opportunity cost. So you just learned something new about economics again, and it's called opportunity cost. Opportunity cost means that When you get an opportunity, when you get a free lunch, when you get a free ticket to a movie, when you get a job, it will cost you an opportunity cost. Means you're getting this opportunity and losing the opportunity of getting something else. So that is called opportunity cost. And as economists, we will be able to calculate the opportunity cost for something we get, and that's how we make our decisions. So even though we are getting something good, we are still counting or calculating the cost that it has to us so that we make or we don't make the decision. Okay, example. LA Laker basketball star Kobe Bryant chose to skip college and go straight from high school to pros, where he has earned millions of dollars. Okay, he lost. Yes, he lost. He lost the chance to go to school and learn something, but he gained millions of dollars. So whether he lost or not, I'll leave it to you. But the opportunity cost to him was not being able to pursue his higher education, and he did just go play basketball right after. So you see the opportunity cost. Had he gone to college, pursued his master's or PhD or whatever, you would say he's doing well. But the opportunity cost was leaving his school, going to NBA and earn millions of dollars. So I'm not sure if you're following what I'm trying to say. It's just no matter how good you get something, there's still a cost to it. Okay. The next concept that how can we calculate the opportunity cost probation? He was gifted with, he wouldn't know. To answer your question, answer your comment, Mr. Navabi, he was talented. He wouldn't know until he would try. So we are all talented in some other. I mean, we are not going there. We are not going to talent and everything. We are just looking at the fact that it will cost you to take an opportunity, and the cost is losing other opportunities. Okay, we will go to the calculation part. Now I'm just trying to explain the concepts to you. So after that, we will go to some calculations later. Yeah, if you could just send your questions or comments to all so that everybody can see that would be great. And I try to, when I get some comment or question, I read it out loud and then explain it so that everybody will know. But please just send it to everyone so that everyone will know. Marginal changes are small incremental adjustments to an existing plan or action. So we are going to learn something new again. It's called marginal changes. So margins are small or incremental adjustments to an existing plan of action. Okay, people make decisions by comparing costs and benefits at the margin. So those decisions that we make are based off of the fact that what are the changes or smaller adjustments that we get doing something, and that's how it makes sense to say people make decisions by comparing costs and benefits and margins. So margins means the adjustments or changes that you get according to your decision. So marginal changes that we just discussed in cost or benefits motivate people to respond. The decision to choose one alternative over another occurs when the alternative's marginal benefit exceeds its marginal cost. So we are getting deeper. So, okay, Mr. Nurzai, you should be able to just view your slides on your screen. So it's just on your front page, and you shouldn't be able to go like to the different slides, But when I go to different slides, you should be able to view it, and it's on the main page on your left-hand side. Okay, so that's for some technical problem. So let's get back to marginal changes. So we said when there is a change or adjustment, or like a small change or adjustment according to your decision, we call it, we said, sorry, costs and benefits at margins happen. So here we say the decision to choose one alternative over another occurs when that alternative's marginal benefit exceeds its marginal cost. So this is very important. What we mean by this is when you make a decision, okay, let's say you made a decision to take that free hamburger, which was your free lunch. For you to make sure that your decision is right, is you need to know what are the marginal benefits. Marginal benefits are those small adjustments that benefit you, and then compare it with the marginal cost. So those marginal changes, like small changes that you get when doing that, and then you compare these two and you see which one is bigger or exceeds the other, and then you make the decision whether to go for that free lunch or not, you know. So just a simple explanation, like in one person's eye, is that let's say that free hamburger that you're getting, the marginal benefit of that free hamburger, let's say, is that you're getting a free meal, then you don't have to spend money on that meal. Okay, that's how it looks like. And let's say it's a pretty decent hamburger and it's like, this is enough for you. So these are all the benefits. You don't have to eat for that lunch anymore. You have that meal, and that's good enough for you to feel good for a couple hours. So those are the benefits you get. But the marginal cost is, let's say, not cooking a healthy food and getting a lot of high cholesterol, or let's say not going to your auntie's place that had cooked for you that day, and so you're getting that lunch and you're losing all these benefits, or all these other marginal costs are against that, only that fact of a marginal free lunch. So then when you compare, you will say, I don't want that free lunch because the marginal cost of that free hamburger is much higher than the benefit of just having a free meal. So you understand what I'm saying? That's how you compare. I'm just trying to give you a like a regular example, but as we go deeper, might get a bit more complicated. But if you understand the concept, it should not be a problem at all. So I just want you to internalize and understand exactly what we mean by marginal benefits, opportunity cost, equity, all these terms, and so that we can, discuss further. Okay, now let's see. There are some questions here. Let me see what's going on here. Okay. One point that is immediately obvious to the most casual observer with the meanest intelligence is that most people do not think at the margin. Okay, for example, most people who buy oranges at the groceries stores think like this: oranges are $25, 25 cents each. I think I'll buy half a dozen. They do not think like this: oranges are 25 cents each. I'm going to buy one because my marginal value exceeds the market price. Now I'm going to buy a second one because my marginal is close to the price. We know Most people don't think like this because most people don't build their shopping baskets one orange at a time. Orange mess. Okay. So that was a good example by Mr. Zargun. Yes, very good example. I liked it. Exactly. That's how we make decisions as economists. We are not going to just make decisions as like just our feeling. We are going to dig deeper and look at it with economic aspects. So to briefly explain the marginal changes again, let's just do this. When you are making a decision, okay, we used to just look at it in a way that, okay, you made a decision, that's what you do, and that's what you get. That's it. But as an economist, we don't do that. What we do, we say, okay, you made a decision. So when you make a decision, or before you make a decision, you got to know what are the marginal changes. Marginal changes meaning those small, even the smallest as possible, incremental adjustments to the existing plan of action that you have right now. So let's say you are going to buy bread. Okay, you're going to buy bread for your meal. So when you want to go and buy bread for your meal, you know that if you buy this whole wheat bread, it will cost you this much, and it will cost you, let's say, $5, and to have a big loaf of whole wheat bread, and when you get that, that will give you this much calories, and that will, help you to eat it with your meal, and make you full, and it's like healthy and blah blah blah, and all those different minor factors that comes into play. Okay, those minor benefits like adjustments to where you are right now with your $5 in your hand and having no bread in your hand. So you have your $5, not your loaf of bread. Okay? So what are the minor benefits that you get giving out that $5 and getting that loaf of bread? Okay? These are the benefits. So the cost, on the other hand, is when you get that loaf of bread, you will spend $5. You won't be able to spend that $5 unless getting rice, or when you get rice, you have like different a list of benefits, and not getting like even a meal for that $5. You could just go buy a hamburger instead of just getting a loaf of bread, and which you would only be using part of it and leave the rest of it for next time, and it's not even a whole meal. You need to add more. So you see all these factors, these minor benefits and costs, make you to come to the point that you make the decision whether you want to pay that $5, get that bread, or forgo that and don't do that. So getting back to this slide that I was just explaining, which is here. So the decisions to choose one alternative, which is, let's say, giving out $5, getting that loaf of bread, over getting, let's say, rice, occurs when your alternative's marginal benefits of getting that loaf of bread exceeds the marginal cost of getting that bread. So is your question answered so far, Mr. Akmal and Ms. Masuda? Are you following the explanation? Any questions so far? Okay. These are very basic and easy terms, but these are absolutely necessary for our future, analysis. So I definitely suggest you spend some good time using different examples, applying these concepts, and try to internalize the meaning of these jargons that you are learning. So opportunity cost is not something that your grocery let's say, cashiers at the grocery shop in your, let's say, in your neighborhood would talk about, say, okay, how's your opportunity cost going today? That's not a question you get every day. So I really want you to try to, think about it and sort of understand it, so that when we go deeper and try to analyze the stuff and we are using all these, you would be very familiar with that, because the level of understanding that we need for that is like absolutely complete for knowing all these, so that we can go further. Okay, let's go to the next slide. People gain from their ability to trade with one another. Okay, that's true. We always trade, right? Like before, it used to be the case that people would just trade off materials. Like back in the day, people will give you food if you would give them clothes. They'll give you gemstones if you would give them your steel. Or like gemstones versus certain type of wood that you would carve. So there was no money. People would just barter trade. Now, of course, people still always benefit trading with each other, right? You get something, you give something. That's the way it is. Competition results in gains from trading. So now we are even going to competition and trying to explain it differently. And it is that competition results in gains from trading. So basically, when competition is trying to help you gain more from your trading. So basically what happens is when somebody wins in a competition, he or she will be able to gain more from that trading. They are still benefiting, but they just benefit more. Then trade allows people to specialize in what they do best. Okay, that's also true. Trading helps people to specialize in what they do best. Okay, so when you are trading and you're trading gemstones, means that you're good at doing gemstones. You carve them, or you mine them, or you trade them, or whatever. That's what you're good at. If somebody else is a publisher, they publish books and blah blah, they are good at that, and so you will choose what you're good at, and then you specialize in it. So these are just like common understandings. Then a market economy is an economy that allocates resources through decentralized decisions of many firms and households as they interact in market for goods and services. Okay, so now we are learning another concept, which is called market economy. What do we mean by market economy? Market economy is an economy that gives or allocates resources through a decentralized decisions of many. So many people are making decisions based on their marginal benefits and costs, and households, and they interact in markets for goods and services. So those products that they're talking about is either goods or services, and they're interacting, and so the resources that are allocated among them is called market economy. Can make everyone better off is patently is obvious. Okay. We are just talking about obvious matters then. Yeah, so it's just better off, who betters off more. Households decide what to buy and who to work for. Firms decide who to hire and what to produce. So these are like some examples. Okay. Adam Smith made the observation that households and firms interacting in markets act as if guided by an invisible hand. Okay. So now we're talking about an invisible hand. Because households and firms look at prices when deciding what to buy and sell, they unknowingly take into account the social cost of their actions. As a result, prices guide decision makers to reach outcomes that tend to maximize the welfare of society as a whole. Okay, so Adam Smith, who's an economist, understood that households and firms, when they are in market economy, they are led by an invisible hand. So they decide what to buy and not to buy with unknowingly taking into account the social cost of their action. So what is the social cost? What is like marginal cost, like the social marginal cost of their action? And because of that, the outcome that they get maximize the welfare of society as a whole. So this is also another concept, the invisible hand, which is customers or buyers and sellers unknowingly taking into consideration the social cost. Social cost is again another cost, like what are the social costs of buying or making a decision. And because they consider that, there is also this invisible hand in action when we make our decisions. Okay, so now what do we mean by market failure? Market failure occurs when market fails to allocate resources efficiently. So we were just talking about resources. So if market is not able to allocate resources efficiently, it's called market failure. Then again, we are not talking about justice and everything. This is just the market being able to divide the resources the way they're supposed to be, in a countable way, or in a way that they help the market economy. When the market fails or breaks down, government can intervene to promote efficiency and equity. Okay, you remember those two terms, efficiency and equity? If you don't, I just go back so that you can just have another look here. Efficiency was helping the society get the most of it from its scarce resources, and equity is when it's fairly distributed. So when the market fails, sometimes governments try to come in and make some changes in the market so that this happens. Okay, so what do we mean by that? Because without the government, the market is pretty free, right? People can sell, buy. I say, okay, I want to sell my book for $200. One guy comes in and says, I want to sell my book for $500. The other guy says, I want to sell my book for $1,000. So there is no regulation, no rule. I can just say whatever I want, and you can buy whatever you want, right? So we will talk, and I say, okay, it's $1,000. You say 1,000 is too much. How about 500? And we discuss, and finally we get to a price, right? But if the market doesn't work like the way it's working now, like we making decisions as buyers for considering the marginal cost and benefit and everything, and we're making decision and we fail, like the market as a whole doesn't fit to the fact that the invisible hand is not working and the social welfare of the society is not met, then the government comes in, it says, okay, nobody is allowed to sell their book more than $500. That's the maximum price that you can give to the book. So that's some regulations the government came in to do to make sure that equity part is done properly, because there are resources, there are limited number of resources. We just talked about here. Like we are trying to get the most from our resources. It is fairly distributed. So government tries to intervene and and make changes. Yes, one other way is what Mr. Nawabi says. So you don't regulate the market because some governments are really afraid to do that in certain countries like in USA. But sometimes uh, they put some money into the market. They print some more money, and uh, you know they print some more money because they feel that too little money is chasing too much goods, so they increase the amount of money to set a balance. But then going back to this is why governments can sometimes improve economic outcomes. So it doesn't guarantee that if the government decides to do so, it necessarily helps the situation. So that is what we're talking about. Okay, so market failure, we just discussed it, could could happen for two major reasons. An externality, which is an impact of one person or firm's action on the well-being of a bystander, or market power, which is the ability of a single person or firm to unduly influence market prices. So market failures happen because of each of these. It could be an externality. So one person or firm actions the effects of well-being of a bystander. So it's not a direct relationship. Somebody else will impact somebody else that they are not necessarily in a direct interaction, or a market power, which is the ability of a single person or firm to influence the prices. So the second example could be the fact that, you know, just not buying. Like sometimes customers, like in mortgage case in the United States, like when houses become super expensive and people were buying like mortgages and everything, and nobody was buying, and the houses were overpriced. Suddenly, what happened is the market crashed. People stopped buying houses and selling houses. So that caused some changes. So single people decided to do stuff to change the market prices, and now the prices for houses are really different now. The distinction here in the economic way of thinking. Yes, yes, that's true, Mr. Zargun. We are looking at it at the eyes of economic thinking again. So externality case is when you are influenced by as a bystander, or for market power is when you, for a single person, decides to change market prices. Okay. Well, another example of a market power is like one wholesaler decides to buy a whole lot of rice supply in a city, so he has the whole supply. So and then so it will be like not much rice out in the market. The price will go high, and he's making a change in the market price. So all these ways, and some ways it's sometimes these are not legal. Okay, standard of living may be measured in different ways. So, sure. Standard of living could be measured by comparing personal incomes, which is like the amount of money that you make, or by comparing the total market value of a nation's production. Okay, so these are factors that when you go to IMF or United Nations chart, and they are listing countries and telling us which country is doing well or which country is doing bad. When they say, let's say, Denmark or some country like Norway is doing really well, blah blah. What are the factors they look at? Are they looking at the sceneries of their countries, or are they looking at the way their president look? I don't think so. Basically, what they look at are their numbers. These numbers that we are going to understand and learn better about is one of them is their personal incomes. Like there's an average personal income that everybody earns in a country, and that is basically listed in IMF, UN, and a lot of different organizations charts, and that's how they rank countries. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Mr. Rafa. It's called income per capita, and or by comparing the total market value of a nation's production. That's the GNP and GDP that we were talking about, and we will learn more about it. So, yes, that's right. So, all these are the factors that those organizations look at to see how a country's economy is doing. So, these tools of measurements are helping us to understand how the country as a whole is doing, you know. So, and then governments will make economical decisions on them based off of these factors. They make changes. They come intervene in the market to increase or decrease any of these. They try to come add inflation, take out unemployment, put in employment. All these ways that they come in and play to make changes and adjustments to their economic system to change these numbers are happening around us. So basically, we are trying to understand what exactly is going on and be able to analyze in economic perspective. Almost all variations in living standards are explained by differences in countries' productivities. Okay, very good. So it all is going to be related back to the fact that how the countries are productive or they're not. Productivity is the amount of goods and services produced from each hour of a worker's time. So that is also a similar term, but we are learning the meaning in the eyes of economic perspective. So the amount of goods or services that are produced from each hours of a worker's time, we call it productivity. So standards of living may be measured in different ways. Oh, did I go back? Yes. Yeah, we did go back. Yeah, standard of living, we just discussed, is by comparing personal incomes or total market value of nation's production. Okay, now here. Inflation. What is inflation that we talk about all the time? The people talk about. They say inflation is so high. What does it mean? Inflation is an increase in the overall level of prices in the economy. So prices have a level, and there are formulas to calculate the inflation, and we'll go there. But just a general understanding is that inflation is an increase in overall level of prices in the economy. So the overall level of prices will go high. You say we have inflation, and there's a number to it. It's like could be they say it in percentage, so it could be anywhere from 0, which is unrealistic, to some countries they have double-digit inflations. One cause of inflation is the growth in the quantity of money. We were just talking about how governments will try to intervene and they try to change some economic outcomes. Sometimes they decide to print money, and when they print money, the inflation will go high. When government creates large quantities of money, the value of money falls. That's basically very, very common sense. You have too much money chasing too little goods. So because money should be backed by value, and a certain amount of money that the government has is probably is when they decide to print more money, in a sense, government is increasing their debt to their debtors. Like one of the facts that we say United States is the biggest uh, like debtor country in the world. It's like they have a huge debt is because they have given out a lot of US dollars to countries like China. So they buy the stuff, they paid them in US dollars, so that is like a debt. So they had sometimes to print money and decrease the value, stop printing money, increase the value, so all these different ways. When the government creates large quantities of money, the value of the money falls. We just discussed that. And the last principle here is that Philip Kell illustrates the trade-off between inflation and unemployment. So, governments from time to time, okay, from time to time, governments decide to increase the inflation to, to decrease the unemployment and vice versa, but this is only working for short terms. So, and the reason being, as I said, is like they when they increase the inflation, uh, one of them is psychological. People start to work because the prices are going high. They have to have a job, so it's much more difficult not to have a job. And so what happens is basically it's not that people will get the job. Let's say if you are working in a bank or if you're a manager, when inflation goes high, it doesn't mean that if you're unemployed, there will be a management job be handed to you. Is basically due to the fact that you will be willing to do jobs that you won't be willing to do if there was no inflation. So if you're a manager, you'll go down to a lower position. You'll be willing to work for less money, but you will have a job because without a job, you won't be able to survive because inflation is higher. Your savings will just deplete, so you just do whatever. And you can't do that forever, so it's not going to work forever, so that's why it's short term. I have a comment here, sir. How can we compare the standard of living from two ways, like by comparing personal incomes and by comparing total market value? A small number of people are only on a personal income. Okay. Mr. Akmal, the way it works is going back to the previous slide that you have your question on, which I go here. Okay, and okay, here. The way it works is these are indicators of the way the country is doing. So the income per capita is basically an average number. So if there are certain people that are earning a lot of money, and there are a lot of poor people, then the average will bring that poor people salary much higher than what it actually is. And so it is not fully reliable. And that's why they have all these different indicators like poverty range or the percentile of then you will see like those people who are earning above average. You have the mean of that average, and you see if there's a major difference between the mean and the average. Then you'll see the guy who earns like the highest amount is where it stands. So these are statistics, ways to analyze it. But the whole concept is countries in their economic system if it's working properly, it has to have equity and efficiency that we talked about. Like the scarcity should be, we should be using or getting the most of what whatever resources that we have, no matter how scarce they are, and then be able to distribute them fair, not necessarily fair in the sense that we have less poor people and rich people, but in the sense that it's like in a certain way of measurable amounts that people can, get and everything. So the way that countries are compared is also their production, because we have a lot of stuff like if customers are in debt or not, and how much they produce, how much they buy, and the difference between them, they mean a lot of stuff. So we will go into all those kind of things and be able to understand what we basically mean by that. But as of now, we just want to know that these are factors that help uh, uh, the certain, uh, let's say, countries are doing well or not, and certain organizations like IMF, as I mentioned, UN, and a lot of other organizations that are dealing with these are using to understand how the countries are doing, how their economic systems are doing, and how their economic decisions are helping them. So let's say if a president comes in and introduces a new tax plan, that will definitely result in changes, marginal benefits or costs to the people, and it will change the income level, everything, and how the overall picture of his plan will translate in a better economy or not. So as we discussed, though, the idea of a good economy is basically not necessarily true. We discussed that we have the economy, it's just whether we make good economic decisions or not. So good economy, in a sense, what common people mean by good economy is uh, making good decisions, good economic decisions, which lead in us getting the equity and efficiency in the market, and our money market will perform and wouldn't break down or fall down or whatever. So these are what we mean. So it's very important for us to understand now that we are not necessarily using the terms that people are using without knowing what exactly they're talking about, and understand how to analyze them and how to really understand them and how to basically apply them in our everyday life. So just knowing all these concepts would not help. Like just knowing opportunity costs and all these terms that we will learn about are not necessarily going to help us. But what it will help us to do is just to look at our everyday life situations and understand how it applies, like economic decisions that we make, and how we sort of relate that into our life and basically our career, and life will look better if we make better economic decisions no matter what. So that's our major goal from this course, and probably from any economic course, to help us to make better decisions. So better decisions do not necessarily mean better economy, but for sure they mean better economic situation. Okay. So any questions so far? Any comments, questions? Okay. Yeah, we have this comment from Zargun, Mr. Zargun. Okay. These two courses that we have this semester are really helpful, and they are really applicable in our everyday life. So I think we will enjoy the class. Thank you so much, everyone, and I'll see you in the next week's class. If there's any comments, any questions, I'll send you the slides through the admin, and we will go from there. Okay. So if there's no more questions, we can just finish the class. Thank you all. You have a wonderful night, and see you soon.